important data to protect. So those is all things that you need to protect. Okay, one thing that you need to understand, once you really classify and understand the assets in your organization, not all the assets are the same. Some assets are more important than others. So how do you know which asset is more important? Again, this is when you are starting interviewing your basically your team members and really understand how critical it is. So you first of all, you have like a small sheet, or maybe sometimes it's a PDF saying what is the asset name, okay, why this asset is critical. It means what kind of mission, important critical mission that is support the organization with. So this is assets, okay, this is a database that support HR. This database are supporting the sales team. This database are supporting our marketing team. So this is where you can understand what is the link between business and the assets, and that's why it's important to try to understand how it's what is the criticality of an asset. And then you will have one column here to say the impact, because you wanted to understand what is the impact on your organization if you lose this assets. So this is very important. So the impact if we lose this assets, okay, the HR will not be able to do their jobs, and that's why it will affect hiring and termination process, and this is also will affect the company productivity. So you understand the impact. Okay, some of the impact is going to be like the sales team database. What will happen if we have a sales team database is down, okay, and now you cannot reach your customers, you don't know which thing is the purchases from you already. So this is going to be embarrassing, and this is also can make you lose money. So this is also one of the impact here. Also, it will be also there is an intangible impact, which is basically your reputation in front of your customers will not be really great. This is the first three column: assets, criticality, impact, and then you started to look at vulnerabilities. And vulnerabilities is a very important topics, and that's why there is a job right now. It's called, vulnerability assessment engineer. So all what you're gonna do is looking for vulnerabilities within your organization, okay, and try to identify this vulnerability, try to find a remediation for this vulnerability, and try to really manage the vulnerability within the organization. So this is itself become a job now: vulnerability assessment engineer or a vulnerability management engineer. So all what these guys are gonna do, they are gonna identify vulnerabilities. They can validate these vulnerabilities, and then they can find a rectification or remediation for this vulnerability, and then they can communicate these vulnerabilities to the proper team. So this is becoming a job. Why? Because this is becoming a job right now. It used to be part of the risk, okay? But I told you risk is not really technical job. But just looking for vulnerability only is becoming a technical job. Why? Because you need to use different tools, Nmap, OpenVAS, Nesses. So it really requires you, and also requires you to have a penetration testing background. So the vulnerability assessment become now a job. So sometimes you go on LinkedIn and find vulnerability assessment. It used to be part of the risk. It used to be is gonna do this, but I'm telling you, it requires now a lot of technical work, especially when it comes to different tools, different mentality when you do a penetration testing. So it's becoming a job. So once you find the vulnerability, and once you find the critical vulnerability, which is basically according to something we mentioned before, SVC, okay, you have all this in the list. And then you can come up with a scenario. And the scenario is going to be saying what kind of threats it's going to pose danger or pose or can harm my information assets. And what we mentioned before, and I keep telling you, harming the information assets comes in three flavors. It's gonna either to harm the confidentiality of the assets, or the integrity of assets, or the availability of the assets. So once we have a scenarios here, we mentioned yesterday there is two ways to do an analysis and risk analysis. One is qualitative and one is quantitative. And I told you guys also yesterday what is the difference between qualitative and quantitative. So in qualitative environment, we can sit with different teams, or we can use Delphin methodology to get opinions about the risk, and if we think this risk is high or low or medium, according to questionnaires or interviews. So we say, okay, what happened if this vulnerability being exploited, or this is threat specifically exploit this vulnerability? And you can say, you know, in this case, it would be high. So I will give you an example to make it easy. Okay, I have an important laptop where you have all the customer data is in this laptop. Okay, so this laptop is becoming an asset here. Okay, here is gonna be the second tab is how critical is this important. Critical is this laptop. It's important because it includes all the database of our customer or all the data for our customer. Okay, the impact if we lose this laptop is great. Why? Because the impact, it could be someone will get all this list of the data and customers. Also, it could be also, you know, damaging of our reputations. We all have seen there is the son of Joe Biden. His name is Hunter Biden. He took one of his laptops to a repair shop, and then he left this laptop in the repair shop, and the guy was really interesting because the guy who brought this laptop never come back again. So he started to really open the laptop and look at the data inside, and he found out it's really related to Hunter Biden, and he started to find like some very interesting email between Hunter Biden and some Chinese companies, and the Biden himself was involved, and it was become a very big thing. So this is just by losing the laptop. So the impact, it could be really great. It could be really leading to a catastrophic event for a company if there is a lot of data in this laptop. Okay, so the second thing we will look at here, the vulnerability. So the vulnerability, we are mentioning it, this data is going to be also there, and if you never encrypt the data here, so this data is basically in clear text. And clear text means if someone found this laptop, he can easily take out this hard drive and connect it to another computer and start to extract all the data from the hard drive. Okay, or even if you, in the case of Hunter Biden, you give him the username and password, so he doesn't really need to do this. He just need to log in, and all the data is there. Okay, so basically, this is the vulnerability: is your data is not protected in the laptop, and the threats, as I told you, the threats will be here is a theft. If someone steals this laptop from this person, what will happen? And that's why I talked to you guys about the scenario. So now it's up to you to decide, when I tell you about this scenario, to tell me, okay, what is the risk here? Is the risk is going to be high? Is going to be medium? The risk is going to be low. So what do you think? What is the risk is going to be here in this scenario? I have explained the whole scenario. You still need some extra coffee? Hello?
Can you repeat the question?
Okay, the question is, okay, we're gonna do qualitative analysis right now. The qualitative analysis that I'm gonna give you some scenario, and you can tell me, okay, if the risk is high or medium or low. So I have an important laptop, which is include customer data. Okay, this laptop, if we lose it, the impact is great. Okay, the vulnerability in this laptop, that the data is there without any kind of protection. So the data is clear text. Okay, and the threat here is a physical threat by someone can steal this laptop. Okay, if you are out of the company and you left it in a, for example, in a coffee shop or something, or you're doing something and someone would. So Nawar is saying
it's high.
Okay, so we have Nawar is saying now. Okay, I have Naif is saying the risk would be high. Nawar is gonna be saying
it will be high.
Okay, someone is saying extremely high. Someone is saying medium. Okay, that's why exactly I wanted everyone's opinion. Why? Because I'm telling you a scenario. The scenario is I have this laptop, I have this data on top of this laptop. It's an important critical data. Okay, the laptop is not protected, so this is a vulnerability because the protection is there only a username and password, but the data itself is a clear text. And then
also there is two factors that are the likelihood and the other one. So it's pretty high.
Okay, so Lamia was saying this, Lamia or Amal?
No, it's Maha.
Maha saying it's exactly this is high. Okay, so this is all what qualitative risk analysis is all about. It's we giving a scenario, and you guys, according to your experience and the scenario, you can tell high or low, and then accordingly we will start to say this is high. So some of you have said it's medium. Okay, I wanted to hear the explanation. Why I wanted to hear the explanation? Maybe from his opinion, I say, oh, you see, he will say, okay, you know what? I will protect this computer with multi-factor authentication. On this case, okay, I will listen to him. They're saying, yeah, okay, so as long as it's multi-factor authentication, even if someone has a laptop, he will not be able to log in. But I told you another scenario. He can take out the hard drive. He can connect it to another laptop, and then the multi-factor authentication will not be useful, because the multi-factor authentication only to control the login to the operating system, but the data itself is not protected. So again, and that's why when we do the qualitative, also because we don't wanna to say he said that, she said that, from her opinion she said that. No, we do this in the Delphi techniques, and the Delphi techniques is basically being anonymous and send a survey back to a certain scenario. So we agreed it's high. Why it's high? There is a huge, especially I like also someone mentioned the likelihood. The likelihood is very important thing to talk about now, because basically if you have this laptop, okay, and you are a person who is really on move all the time and he is traveling a lot, okay, so the likelihood now of laptop theft is higher. Why? Because you are jumping from one place to one place and traveling from one airport to one airport. Maybe you will forget it in one place when you are sitting or you are traveling. Okay, so this thing is happening. So the more frequent you are traveling, the more I would say insecure areas that you visit, the probability of you losing your laptop is high. Okay, guys. So this is basically, as I walked with you guys through the way of analysis, which is basically qualitative. Okay, quantitative analysis, it will be making more sense. I will say why quantitative analysis makes more sense to the business. Quantitative analysis saying, you know what, how much is this laptop? Okay, you say, you know, how much is a laptop? It's gonna be around, let's say, $2,000. Okay, so they said, okay, so the $2,000. Okay, so if I lose this laptop, it's gonna be only $2,000. No, this is not only the cost. The cost also, if you have a very important data in this laptop, okay, and I lost this data, there is three kind of factors, okay, that I have to look at. First of all, can I recover this data from a backup or no? Okay, if I can recover it, how much it will cost me to recover this data from a backup? So this is one of the aspects of the price here that I would put for the laptop. Another thing, okay, if I lose this laptop and this laptop fall between bad guys and they started to look at the data and they started to publish this data, and people comes back to you, okay, to say, okay, you know what, you basically our data is being exposed or breached, and there is a fines coming against you because you didn't protect their data. So there is a fines also, okay, coming towards you. So how much is the fines per record on this laptop? Another also example of the I would say the total amount you need to pay to recover this laptop is basically also the intangible loss, which is basically you lost your customer data. Now you are, as a company, you are not very I would say you are not very I would say careless in this case, because you lost their data. So you lost their confidence in you. Okay, so this is also intangible asset. Put this all together, it may be the laptop price will reach from 2,000 maybe to 30,000. Why? Add for this on top of this the price of recovery, the price of purchasing a new laptop, the prices of the fines that will come against you if they found out about the breach, and finally the intangible also a price that you will have, like loss of confidence or loss of reputations, which is something it's not easy really to calculate. So let's say that your laptop is 30,000 now. Okay, now you go back to the business and combine both of them, saying, you know what, I have a risk, okay, and this risk from my perspective is high. Okay, from my perspective is high. They will say why it's high. Okay, now you can justify with these numbers. Okay, you will say it's high. Okay, we need to do something about it. And then you will say, okay, if we lose one laptop, the estimated cost for losing, or the single loss of expectancy, because the single loss of expectancy now, you are losing the assets and no exposure factor. The exposure factor is 100% because you lose the laptop, you lose all the assets. Okay, so the exposure factor is 30,000. Why is 30,000? You tell them, okay, the laptop itself is 2,000. There is also fine. It can hurt us by around 20,000. There's also some recovery tools that we're gonna use to recover the data that was used in the laptop. It's gonna cost us maybe 1,000, and also we can also incur, you know, a repetitions issue and confidence issues. So now you justify the high with number. Now you give them all the details. Now it's gonna be back to the business to say, you know what, we accept the risk. Okay, now it's okay. If they accept the risk, now all what you need to do is document what they have said about this risk and say that they accepted the risk, even if it's high. Okay, so this is one thing. The other thing is you say, okay, you know what, let's do something about it. Let's mitigate the risk. And that's why we are there. We are there to mitigate the risk. And then at that time you say, okay, you know what, I wanted really to, if we lose the laptop, you know, I wanted really to minimize or to mitigate losing the laptop price, like losing the laptop single loss of expectancy. So you can say, you know what, for the laptop hardware, I can purchase, for example, I can purchase an insurance. So every laptop in your organization will have an insurance. If you lose the laptop, you can get maybe 60% or 80% out of this 2,000. So you minimize this. Okay, this is part of the mitigation. So mitigation may be buying an assurance or insurance for your laptop. Another thing that's okay, I wanted also to mitigate the problem of data breach, which is if someone found the laptop, he can really find the data inside. So you can say, you know what, in order to, even if we lose the laptop, no one will be able to see the data, I will do an encryption. The encryption could be done by two ways. One of the ways is to use some native tools within Microsoft Realm. So they have an application called BitLocker. So you can use BitLocker to basically encrypt the laptop. Or maybe I can use external third-party encryption, like from McAfee or maybe Symantec or maybe Kaspersky, that is gonna also, you know, encrypt the hard drive. In the first case, it will cost me nothing because BitLocker is part of Windows. It comes like backed with Windows. In case of McAfee, it will cost me $2,000, okay, to buy the license for encryption. So now you need to buy insurance to cover the hardware loss. You need maybe if you decided to go for an external third-party application, which is going to be 2,000. So maybe you will buy the insurance plus the 2,000. Also, finally, in order also to ensure there is no repetition issue, encryption will solve this issue. And maybe if you wanted to implement defense in depth, you wanted to make also sure that no one can access the data in the laptop without multi-factor authentication. So this is another solution. You can implement it per laptop. Okay, most of the laptops come in with a smart card or fingerprint, or maybe you can buy a third-party, you know, solution. So every time you get to inside the laptop, you can use this solution. So all of this will give you 2,000, let's say, for example, 2,000 for the application, maybe 500 for the insurance, exactly, or using HSM, I will explain HSM in 1 second, guys. Okay. Okay. 500, sorry, 500 for the insurance and 2,000 for the third-party application. You can go back to the management and say, okay, you know what? In order to really mitigate the risk of losing a laptop and losing the data inside, I really need 2,500. So now they will start to do the last thing that the management are good at, is basically something we call it cost benefits analysis. And the cost benefit analysis saying basically, if I lose one laptop, it will cost me 30,000. Okay, so this is a lot of money. But if I wanted to mitigate the risk of losing a laptop and paying a lot for the fines and a bit also it will impact my reputation, I will pay 2,005. Okay, which is makes sense. So the return of the investment here is by implementing this control, I will save the company from a lot of damage. And also, one of the things that managements are good at, which is basically instead also with the cost benefit analysis, is basically they need to practice due care and due diligence. And in a very simple way, due care and due diligence is all about really they exerted of effort to protect the customer data and the organization data. And if they don't find them really doing this, they will be holding accountable for their actions. So they will listen to you, they will assign a budget, but you need to be really reasonable for why you assign high to this, and also different. Also for the controls, you need to really work on the controls to find the proper controls to mitigate the risk. Okay, does this make sense? This is a real example, guys. Use, and as I mentioned, it's good to really combine both of them. Okay, so Shaza was saying, can we use HSM? Okay, HSM, guys, by the way, it's a server or application that is going to be able to handle your secret keys. Secret keys means your certificate secret key. We mentioned that the certificates and PKI, public key infrastructure, is based on something called certificate, and there is two certificates. One is public, which is including your public key, and one is private, which is including your private key. Okay, but in laptop specifically, okay, and why we use HSM, guys? Because HSM is going to be saving your private key or holding your private key here in a secure place. So if your server is compromised, your certificate will not be compromised. Okay, in your computer, guys, there's a similar function is done by a small unit. It's called TPM, Trusted Platform TPM. Okay, Trusted Platform. Okay, chip, which is basically a small chip or small IC. Okay, within your computer, and most of the encryption that's happening in your computer, especially if you encrypt the hard drive, it will save the keys here in the TPM. It will activate the TPM because the TPM is not activated by default, and then it will save the keys here. What is really interesting about the TPMs, which is the trusted platform chip in your computer, is basically it's a very small hardware that is really fast when it dealing with encryption keys and saving the encryption keys. And even though if someone tried to take off this TPM outside the computer, he will not be able to reach your keys. So even physical attacks against TPM is very limited. Also, another thing, when they ask the TPM for the secret keys or for the private key, it will allow them to have to save these secret keys. Okay, guys, that's why it's a lot of computers and a lot of organization right now, when it comes to saving the secret keys or the private key for their certificate, they use one of these solutions, HSM or TPM. But TPM is based on your computer. HSM is based on the whole network. Okay, guys. So far, so good. Okay. So HSM, it will be used. Sorry, TPM will be used here for this specific use. And again, I mentioned yesterday also there's something you need to understand. It's good for the exam, and also it's good for interviews. Can you guys put me in mute? I think like that. Who is Can you guys, some of you guys are not in mute, so I will go for muting them. Okay. Okay, I hope that's okay. I'm not sure why. Okay, another thing, guys, you need to really look at also some definition that's important for interviews, and some also it's important for the exam, is basically inherited risk and residual risk and risk appetite. And that is the topic that we covered yesterday as well. And I mentioned that inherited risk means that you started activity that it will bring risk to it, okay? And there is no control yet there to protect you. So just as a simple example, right? Okay, if you use the website, if you use to publish a website, when you publish a website, there's a great opportunity, okay, of having customer that can reach your website, your bank website from everywhere in the world. Okay, that is great. Okay, but then there's an inherent risk here. What is the inherent risk? Maybe one of these users are a hacker and have malicious intent to break into your system or your bank. So it opened the door for basically for attacks. So you are there to really mitigate the risk of inherited risk. Inherited risk, we do some activities that can open the door for this. Okay, another example to make it easy. Let's say that you have a laptop, and this laptop doesn't have a username or password, and it doesn't have any sort of encryption, but it helps you to do your homework. It helps you in university. It helps you to it's helping you also to access the internet. So it's giving you all these options of connecting to your family abroad, reaching the internet, sending email, receiving. So this is great. So this is your main activities on this laptop, but it's coming with inherent risk. What's it inherent risk? Because you don't have any firewalls, any username and password, or any antivirus, someone can really attack your computer and compromise your computer, or maybe infected your computer with a virus. So the inherent risk. So the inherent risk is basically the risk that exists in absence of controls. Okay, so malware could be a risk in the case of computers, and hackers, okay, can exploit one of your vulnerabilities because you don't have your firewall or any patches installed in your computers. So this is basically a risk of cyber attacks, okay, and you don't have any control. So we call this inherent risk. Why it's inherent risk? Because basically you decided to connect your laptop, okay, to the internet, and the internet is untrusted place. Okay, this is one thing that you need to keep in mind every time you see internet, whether you're working in a government, or whether you work at home, or whether you work in an organization. You need really to secure the connection coming from the internet, because you don't know which kind of traffic, which guys out there are after your company, which even bots over there, which is automated tools to compromise networks right now, is there. It's scanning the internet day and night. So you can think only hackers will be an issue. Also, bots now are an issue. That's why in a lot of websites that you can see right now, when you try to log in or when you try to enter your information, okay, they give you this captcha thing. Did you guys see it? Saying that we have a number here, and this number you need to write it again, or maybe you listened to something and started to write it here. So this captcha basically is there because they are worried from the bots and from this automated tools that try to compromise your website day and night. Okay, guys. Another thing that you really need to look at is residual risk. And what is the residual risk is all about? Once you have your inherent risk, you say, okay, I cannot leave my computer connected to the internet without a proper control. I cannot really connect to my internet, to my computer, to different networks without having a proper antivirus and a proper anti-malware, because maybe I will get infected. So the residual risk is saying, okay, you have the risk of the viruses and malware, you have the risk of hackers. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna turn your computers antivirus. Maybe you can purchase an antivirus, and also you will enable your firewall. Now, after enabling the firewall and after installing the antivirus, your computer is not going to have 100% security. There is nothing called 100% security, by the way. If someone told you when you join a company, we are 100% secure, this is a very bad indication, okay, that they are really not in good shape. Okay, if someone come and say you and told you, I'm giving you one solution to give you 100% security, okay, there's nothing called 100% security. This is also a false allegations. So what happened is, okay, once you implemented this control, the antivirus and the firewall, there will be a residual risk. What is a residual risk? It will be around maybe 5, 10, 11, according to what control you applied, okay? Because even if you apply a firewall, an antivirus or anti-malware, someone can trick you, okay, by phishing email, okay, and this phishing email will take you to a website, and then he can compromise your browser. So this is, your firewall will not really able to do anything about it, and your antivirus will not be able to do anything about it, okay, because there is no virus, and the firewall think it's you or clicking this link and go to this website, so it will not really complain, okay? So there is still chances your computer will be compromised. What is the percentage is different between 1 to 1, okay? If someone is opening emails left and right and he doesn't really care about it, okay, there is a chance that he will be compromised. Another thing is, okay, your antivirus is not perfect, okay, by its nature, it's not perfect. Why? It can see a lot of signatures because it's a signature-based antivirus. So as long as the antivirus is updated, it will catch these new viruses. But if it's one day it's not updated, or maybe a new virus breed, which is your virus doesn't have a virus definition for it, it will infect your computers. What is the percentage is different, okay? This list, this is the percentage of risk of being compromised after you install this control, it still exists, and we call it residual risk. Okay, guys? So far, so good?
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
Okay, so the residual risk, guys, is important because it opens the door to ask another question, okay? Is residual risk that after I implement the firewall and the antivirus is okay for my company, okay? Or the residual risk is not? Okay, so this is again back to something called the risk appetite. The risk appetite is basically, I'm a company, okay? I'm working as in a government institution or a military, okay? So I wanted really to have the risk here in a very high level, okay? So even if you're saying that's, okay, so what we do if our antivirus failing to really protect against new viruses, what do you recommend? What do you recommend if our firewall is not enough, okay, to really detect any new attacks? So you can say, okay, you know what, if you don't accept 10%, we can implement more controls. What is the more controls? And maybe I will install something called HIDS, which is host intrusion prevention system or detection system. Maybe I will install something called EDR, endpoint detection systems. Maybe I can really enable anti-ransomware, anti-malware. So every time you enable controls, okay, you're basically trying to minimize, you know what, the residual risk, until you reach a point that the residual risk really become very close to the risk appetite for the company. Again, according to what? According to where you work and what is the risk appetite. And that's why it's important to sit with the business and understand the risk appetite from the early beginning. When I mentioned to you guys before, there is something in the NIST publication is saying basically in the early beginning, when you go sit with the management, is this specifically, okay, you need to understand the business environment. Needed to understand the business environment include what is the critical assets, okay? What is the impact if we lose these assets, okay? What is really the key maker within the organization? And one of the things you need to figure out before this, you will start for risk assessment is risk appetite. Okay, how they are tolerable for risks. Are they okay to have 10%? If we guarantee them 10% residual risk, are they okay? Okay, or they wanted to minimize the risk as much as they can. And this is really related to the resources, okay? related to resources and what? Okay, if I keep adding controls, mean I'm keep adding monies. Okay, are they are willing to pay this money? Okay, if they really, you know, it's they always saying the security is a trade-off. You can really make system very secure, but it's not going to be easy to use in the first beginning, and it's also it will cost you more money. Okay, and you need to also eventually to have, if you work in military, they will not say, you know, they will not hesitate to restore a lot of application, and even it will cost them a lot to make sure that the system is secure. But if you work in a normal company, they have limited resources. They don't have unlimited budget. They will say, okay, you know what, we are good with an antivirus and a firewall and maybe a detection technique like EDR. We are good. We're not going to spend more on this because you know what, we have a limited budget this year for security. Okay, guys. So it depends about which organization, and that's why it's important to understand the business environment. Okay, and understand what is the really risk appetite in early beginning of the of your job. I mean, if you just started a job. Okay, guys. Also, this is some definition that we talked about yesterday. What is AV? What is EF, which is exposure factor? What is single loss of expectancy? What is ARO, which is annual rate of occurrence? What is ALE? What is TCO, total cost of ownership? And we mentioned that the total cost of ownership usually is being calculated when you are implementing new controls. So if you're buying a new controls, you don't go and say to the business, this control is going to cost us $10,000. No, this is not correct. Okay, there is a good questions here about from Hadil, is saying who do we mean by management, CIO or CEOs? Okay, for you as a security engineer, you will be working a lot with the CIO. Okay, usually you are not going to see the CEOs. Okay, the CEOs are very busy. They don't have time to listen to security, but you need really to brief the CIO, and usually also you will be sitting with the risk management officer within your organization. So there is something called risk management office inside the organization that looks to entire risk. One of these risks is the cyber security risk. Okay, but the cyber security is really taking a lot of attention right now because, as I mentioned, most of the companies are relying on IT to deliver day-to-day operations. So you will be heard from the CIO or from the risk manager. This is one thing. Okay, who you can hear about the risk appetite? From the risk management office. Okay, how do you know the criticality of the system? From the business owner. So you really need to understand what you sit with the business owner. What I mean by the business owner, you can sit in a meeting with HR manager. Okay, and you can do a quick questionnaire with the HR managers. I send it only to Sam. So HR manager. Okay, so this is one person that you can sit with him. Okay, so the HR manager will be telling you what systems you really need and how important is this system for them. Sales team or sales manager will be able to also tell you. So take your time to understand. When I go to any interview, I usually ask questions. How's the hierarchy inside this company are working? Okay, so I wanted to understand hierarchy. Who's in the top? Who's the business owners? Who I'm gonna really deal with them in a day-to-day operations. So it's really important to meet these people and to show them that you are really there, interested not to make their life harder by implementing more control and make the password longer and all this. No, you are there to protect their data, to mitigate the risk of losing this data. So show them that you are in their side. But in order to be on their side, you need to understand their business operation, and you need really to secure their business operation. So if someone doing some process which is not secure, you really need to secure. So, but the CEOs, I would say, you never see it, except if they like you so much, the CIO can send you to the CEOs to talk to them. So this is really, and also in IT companies, okay, it's different. Usually in business, if you are in banking, if you are insurance, you will never see the CEOs. But if you really working in IT company, so there is a huge, chances that the CEOs and will listen to IT security specifically. Okay, so moving here, guys. I was talking about the total cost of ownership. Again, when you are proposing a control to the management, or you are proposing a new technology to be introduced, you should tell them about the total cost of implementing this control. With total cost, I don't mean only the cost of purchasing this service or buying this hardware. No, you need to buy the hardware. You need to maintain the hardware. You need to get a license for this hardware. You need to maybe to get a support engineer who will be able to handle this and manage this hardware. And that's why we say total cost of ownership. It will give them an indication, okay, how much it will cost us. You cannot tell them, okay, the encryption technology will cost you 2,000, and then by end of the day, of the year, they find it costs them 2,000 as purchasing the hardware, and then for the license they pay another 2,000, and also for someone to do the implementation, it costs them 1,000, and someone to maintain the system, it costs them 1,000. So this is 5,000. So you really need to know about the total cost of ownership. And finally, the return of investment. I mentioned what is return of investment. Management specifically, they look at everything from coming from, if I spend $1, what I'm getting in return. Okay, especially in security, guys, they cannot think in this way. Okay, now they need to change their mentality a little bit. There's something called return of investment in security. Okay, and there is something called security economics. So you really need to understand how the business they think about money and how you really think about money, and try to get them to a middle area. Because the way they look at money, I'm spending dollars, okay, they usually think, okay, if we as a company spending the dollars, what we getting in return? So they wanted really to invest and getting more money. You are spending to protect them. So they're not looking at you as like a source of revenue. You are a source of liability. They are paying money from their own pockets to buy new technology. So it's for you, for them, you are an expense. Okay, so you really need to justify why you need these controls. And that's why there is a debate always in a big companies, what is the budget of IT security? Okay, so they say, okay, usually, big companies, they have assigned 10% or 7% for IT in general. So out of all their expenses, they have to rent, they have to pay for the employees' salaries, they have to travel, so they have to pay a lot of expense. So how much expense we have to pay for IT? So they said for the entire IT system to buy technology, you need to pay maybe 10%. Okay, in this 10%, how much percentage will allocate for IT security? Okay, so this is another thing you need to worry about. And I don't want to take you to this security economics because it's a big topic, but you should know about that the day that they decide to invest in IT security, okay, it does have different meaning. And here it's basically saying that the amount of money saved by implementation of a safeguard. So now you are turning their mentality to say, okay, now we're gonna invest in a safeguard, we're gonna spend money, but in the same time, it's gonna save us from an attack that will cost us 300,000 or 400,000 or 500,000, or maybe can take us out of business. Okay, so now you should change their mentality. So how we change the mentality? Saying by spending on this safeguard, by implementing this control, which is going to cost us 10,000, it's going to save us from a lot of consequences. If you want an example for this, if you are spending in firefighting systems inside a building, okay, firefighting system, it costs you 1 million. But what we getting in return from this 1 million, we already spend 1 million. You're getting, first of all, if you lose part of your building because of fires, it's gonna cost you maybe 5 million. Okay, if you lose all the entire building because of fire, you're gonna lose 10 million. Okay, if you're gonna lose human life also, this is also something we cannot really put a price for it. So now they would be convincing that they are spending on a safeguard, but it's saving them from a lot of consequences of having a fire within their organization. Okay, guys, so far so good. Okay, and again, I mentioned before, and I keep mentioning to you, you don't have exactly like insurance. I keep mentioning to you guys, and it's important, that don't invent the wheel. What we mean, just don't go and say, you know what, I know a lot of stuff about security. I studied security in university. I have been working 5 years in security, so I can really defend your system in a much better way. No, just say, okay, you know what, I will follow standard. Following a standard is good from so many perspectives. First of all, you will get the best guidelines from expertise in this market, okay, giving it in a free way for you. So all what you need to do is to follow this standard. So it's easy for you to get, you know, sometimes I will give you, sometimes I'm working in a project and I don't know how to do it, okay? So the easiest way is I'm calling someone who has some experience in this field, and I'll tell you, you know what, I'm working on this right now and I have this problem, okay, how can I solve it? In maybe a matter of minutes or 1 hour, he will be helping you to solve the issue, right? Because you as we call the friend, and this person was an expert in what he's doing, so he give you the conclusion how to implement it in a very quick way. Exactly the same thing in the standard here. If you guys look at the standards here, as I mentioned yesterday, we have 3 types of standards, okay, which is very common in the IT security. Some of these standards will help you to build the entire program. Entire program means, okay, you need protection, you need detection, you need to respond, you need to recover. Okay, so this is an entire program. What we mean by entire program, multiple projects running at the same time, and the whole idea behind this project is basically to save and protect your information assets. So this is a program. How can I implement this program? It's saying, you know, it's cool. It consists of 5 core functions, and these core functions that have categories and subcategories. You need to implement all of this. So this is the program itself, okay? And you find a lot of, you know, a lot of publication and a lot of frameworks. They're actually covering the information security program within the organization. The most common one that's everyone heard about it, you know, there is ISO 27001 and the NIST CSF that I keep showing you the diagram since we started the course. The NIST CSF is about, you know, came in 2014 in the US to protect the critical infrastructure, because they were reclaiming at that time there is so many attacks on their critical infrastructure, including the finance systems, including the SCADA system and ICS system that we talked about before. So they come up with this, and I was watching a video today, and they said, okay, what makes all this hypes are real is basically they found out they had honey bots. You guys know what is honey bots? Honey bots?
Yes, Mr. Asad explained it to me.
Okay, perfect. Okay, perfect. So it's also in one of, I think, one of the slides online. And honeybots is basically a fake system that can lure the attacker to come to it. Why? Because it's open, you know, it's full of vulnerabilities. So why they were saying that we are under attack, the US government saying we are under attack again. So what is honeybots in a very simple way? Okay, I wanted really to see what is the latest technology that attackers are using to compromise systems. How can I do this? Okay, I will not wait for the attacker to attack a real system. So I will create vulnerable system and publish it online. So what will happen is the attacker is looking into companies and scanning the internet. He find one of these, you know, very intentionally made vulnerable system. So what he will do? He will start to compromise. Oh, I found a port here. Let me do this compromise. Let me get to the system. Let me escalate the permission. Let me go to find another system which is vulnerable. Meanwhile, you have here the researcher or the people who publish this. They are studying the attacker methodology. They are studying how he did the reconnaissance, how he did exploit the system, how he did escalation of privilege, how he covered the tracks. So they really studying everything he's doing. And now they will have an idea on what IP address he's coming from. Okay, what did he do to establish persistence and to be persistent in the systems? How he created a backdoor for himself to come back to the system. So they're studying everything the attacker is doing. So this is what honeypots is all about. It allows the researcher, okay, to understand what threats out there, okay, and gather information and knowledge about these threats. And now later on, they say, you know what? We find out some groups are coming from, you know, Russia. We'll give them a cool, like a cool name, like the Cozy Bear. Their way to compromise the system, they will do this and this and this until they compromise the system. Exactly. The idea here is to really study the hackers. Okay, how can I study the hackers? I'll give them a vulnerable system and I'll say, you know what, try to exploit it. They will exploit it. But meanwhile, you as a researcher, okay, you really do this. So this is one way to look at honeypots. Another way to look at honeypots, guys, some organization, okay, what they will do here, they will have their network and they wanted really to secure the network, okay? So they said, okay, let me buy a firewall. So this device is firewall. I'll give it F, okay? And this firewall is gonna protect my internal network, okay? And I have from here the external network, which is the internet, right? I will create an area here in my firewall. I will call it DMZ, and I will put my website here. Okay, I know that most of the attacker will come here, okay, and then start to try to go to my website, maybe compromise my website. Let me deviate or let me move their attention to another area. So what they will do, these guys, they will make another DMZ. You can create multiple DMZ in your firewall, especially if you have the proper hardware, and they will add a honeypot here. Okay, why they added a honeypot in a different segment? Basically, they wanted really to take the attentions from the main side. So the attacker will say, "Oh, I found a website over here. Okay, to attract them, to deviate them from attacking your the proper website." So now the attackers are busy to do what? To compromise this and completely forget about it. This one is secure, okay? But now you started to see, okay, you know what? The attacker was attacking this. They coming from this IP address. They coming during this time of the day. I can come to my firewall and create rules to block them. Why? Because the honeypots will allow you to study the attacker as well. And also you have already moved their attentions from your main side here. So it's like a double benefit, okay? And the most important thing, let them even to compromise the system. Even if they compromise the system is an isolated VLAN, okay? They cannot jump from the firewall from here to here because there's no even connectivity between these two areas. So I limited and contained the hackers and the attackers in this area, okay? There's two benefits in this and one drawbacks, okay? What is the benefits and what is the drawbacks? The two benefits, you can study the attacker and come up with the rules to really block them in the future, okay? The second benefit is basically you have already taken their attention from your main website. They are really focused here, okay? So this is the two benefits. One drawback, which is also important to understand, that's if you open a vulnerable website here, okay, that's mean if you have bots, if you have attackers on the internet, they started to know that your website and you and an organization exist, and one of the servers, okay, it's an honeypot, okay, so they already know about you, okay, because your server was vulnerable and they already tried to compromise it. So maybe later on they say, okay, this is an interesting company who wanted to study us. Let's us, okay, study them as well. So they will move their attention to your website. So now as you are having like, let me give you an example. You are telling them, come, I have something interesting. So they will come, okay, they find this one because a lot of attackers, they will find out this is a honeypot maybe in 2-3 hours. Okay, fine. So you were trying to attract us to this website. We are more smarter. Okay, let me now look at your main website and see if it does it have vulnerabilities. So it will open the eyes for your organization and what kind of setups you have. So it has very two good sides, but also a drawbacks, which is also will bring the attackers. And if they are very experienced attackers, now they will find out that you were studying them. In a matter of fact, they will say, okay, you know what? Now we know is what you're trying to do. Let us test you. So this is the drawbacks of honeypots. Anyway, so what I was trying to say here, I'm sorry about the honeypot thing. It's just a topic that's popped in my head, and I said, okay, it's nice to bring it up because you guys already in our platform. Okay, guys. So far, so good. Any questions?
Yeah, it's clear.
Okay. So again, the programs here, as I mentioned, the programs here coming in two flavors. This is the most common one. There's another one called COBIT. There is another standard also from CIS, Center of Internet Securities. So there is so many standards, just for a standard to build your whole programs, okay? And when you build the program, you first early beginning of any program in information security is basically telling you about your assets, your threats, and your vulnerability and your risk. How you do this, okay? So in order also to be very organized and implement risk in a proper way within your organization, don't invent the wheel. You have already risk publication from NIST and from ISO and from FAIR. Okay, all of them are telling you how to implement risk, from risk assessment, risk analysis, to risk treatment, to risk evaluation, and all the way to the end, and how to deal with the risk is residual and risk inheritance. So it's even the risk and how to deal with it when it's come to cybersecurity. There is also a framework. So follow the framework. Okay. Okay. Now I will move from the first course function, which is identification, to the second core function, which is protection. Okay. What kind of protection I will do? Which is the more important thing I will do? So here, for example, NIST is saying the most important thing is access control or identity and access management. The good thing, if you guys allow me to just tell you what is in NIST, it will tell you identity and access management is important. You know, you should establish identity and access management. You should establish IAAA and all the stuff. And we'll give you a reference. This reference is how can you implement this control? Because I'm new. I don't know what control I need to do. Shall I install Active Directory and enable Kerberos for authentication and single sign-on? Should I enable Radius server within my organization to really authenticate network connectivity? Who is going to tell you the recipe? Who is going to tell you which control is the last part over there? The last part over there, it will show you which controls you need to install. Okay, Radius server is going to be installed in this way, and it's going to be there to authenticate all your network traffic and all your network users. So it will give you the control. So where is the controls coming from? There's another control framework over here. Here, the 853 is a very important document. If you guys allow me to show you very quickly how it looks like, it just controls, just telling you implement firewall. In the firewall, implement untrusted boundary, implement trusted boundary, implement a DMZ, put your public servers in DMZ. So it will tell you exactly what I was telling you when we talked about firewall, okay? But some of you will already does not have experience. So it will tell him how to do it. So if you guys allow me to go here to, I'll go to NIST. Okay, so they have NIST. Okay, 800 publication. This is very important. Okay, it's called 853. Okay, revision 4. Revision 4, they have revision 5 now. So revision 4, revision 5 is the last revision. Okay, and once just you go there and here, you click this one, the document is already there. It's a PDF. You can look at it over here. Okay, so this analysis between updates of revision 4. Abstract, you should be able to find one link here. Control, yes, categories. should give you a list of all the controls you need to implement. Let me just clear this one. Couldn't load this workbook. Why is this? Okay, let me clear this. Okay. Thank you very much. Yes, download the files. I'm worried about why it doesn't allow me to open the catalog of controls. Okay. It's interesting. Okay. So this is, guys, over here. This is controls. Okay. So it's saying, okay, in policies and procedures, because policies and procedures are considered as your first line of defense, as considered as controls, which is, we talked about, its management controls, saying, first of all, do this. Okay, here in asset management, which is basically which assets you have within your organization, do this. Okay, so it will give you a list of things. Okay, how to do it. Okay, define and document type of account allowed in your systems, assign account managers, okay, authorize user for your systems, group of rules of membership, access authentication, permission, and it will tell you exactly what you should do when it comes to access management. But, okay, here, for example, account management. What you do exactly when you disable an account, it will tell you one, okay, and it will keep telling you every single control you should implement within your organization. Okay, for example, if I try to go and find, okay, firewall, okay, so this is the firewall section, okay, protect domains within system. I cannot really see, it's a very small, but I will just try to make it bigger. Okay, this is going to be information flow enforcement mechanism, compare security and privacy. And I just wanted to show you that it will tell you that you need to really protect different zones using your unclassified domain system. One-way flow mechanism may also be referred to unidirections. This is for specifically, guys, see, one-day flow mechanism, this is used in SCADA. This is a specific firewall. They called it diodes or unidirection firewall. It allows the data to go from one place to one place. So anyway, I showed you the guys documentation. It will tell you, okay, step by step how to implement security within the organization using solution, but covering data and two and what is that file? Policy and procedures. Okay, this is the first one. Okay, information flow enforcement, security and privacy. Enforce information flow using assignment organization defined security or privacy policy filter as basis of flow control decision assignments. Okay, so it will say here, okay, organization defined security or privacy filter can address data infrastructure and content, for example, to filter data structure. So this is the one that it talks about firewall, but I don't know why it's not clearly saying the firewall here. Okay, interesting. Okay, let me just separate between flow logically or physically using assignments of firewalls. Okay, so I will just look at this document just on like a proper term. I will try to get to you guys what it's exactly it's saying the firewall and how it's being used. But this is the reference that I was telling you about. Okay, so this is another thing that we can just finish over here. Let me just jump from here. I showed you the different control yesterdays, and today what we're gonna talk about, and this is like a quick also revision for what we have talked about before. Once you are allowed to implement security. Once you take the management approval, خلاص, you highlighted the risk. Okay, you got the management approval to go ahead. They allocate for you resources. Okay, how can I implement these resources? I told you about the frameworks, different frameworks. Okay, how can we really implement security within the organization? And this is very important topic, which is defense in depth. You need to really mention this in an interview. And how I implement defense in depth in a very easy way is when you implement defenses, you need to implement it layer after layer. So if a layer failed to protect you, there's another layer to really protect you, or at least to detect the attacks. And here is its other words: by creating multiple backup security controls that cover and overlap each other. The following topics we'll be discussing in these chapters. Defense in depth also will look at the ICS. ICS is a SCADA basically, but this is a good topic, and layered defenses. So layered defenses means, as I mentioned to you yesterday, or maybe the day before when we talked about any IT system, consists of multiple layers of, so this is IT system. They called it information system, IS. Okay, an information system consists of network, because this is where we able to share connectivity to the out world and really get some information. So network, and then after the network, we have the hardware layer. Okay, the hardware layer is basically what kind of device you are using. Are you using SCADA system? Are you using mobile? You're using tablet? You're using laptop? You're using a server? So this is the hardware. And we need to really understand one important topic. The hardware itself would be vulnerable because the hardware is using something specifically called the firmware. So the firmware is basically a special type of software that run in the hardware. Okay, and I showed you guys maybe 2 days ago about the router attacks, that it was really targeting the router firmware, and as soon as the attackers is really compromise the firmware, it can open a back door to access the environment and access the network. So you need really to look at the hardware issue, and then you have to look at the operating system, because this is where you have a layer on top of the hardware that communicate with the hardware. So if someone really infected your operating systems, then it will lead to compromise the whole network or the whole system. Okay, so operating system security is really great deal right now, especially with all the vulnerability that comes from Linux, Windows, OS. So you have to look at it. Then in the top of the operating system, you have some apps that allow us to do our day-to-day jobs. And today we'll try to talk about also app security, because app security is important. Why? Because what kind of apps we have in our organization? We have apps that we buy out of shelf, like Microsoft Office or Adobe PDF. Okay, we get this from download. We download this, and it's in our application. It's installed in our computer. We have another app that is customized for us. Means we go to a big vendor like Oracle, for example, or SAP, if you guys heard about them, and say, you know what, I need a special application to do my finance. So according to the business and according to your requirements, they will create a specifically or customized application that's run in your organization to do the finance and accounting and all this stuff. So this is another application. There's a third application. It's called built in-house application. Built in-house application, maybe you are doing something, okay, you couldn't find it in a SAP, okay, or you couldn't find it in Oracle. And maybe this something is especially for you. So for example, if you are working, for example, in stock market, maybe you have an application that will allow you to buy stocks and sell stocks. Okay, so this is application, you build it. How you build it? You say, okay, I need an application with a graphical interface that will allow me to see the stock right now, how much is the stocks, and there's a button here to buy or sell. So I will create my own application. So this is, they called it in-house. So how many types of application we have? We have customized application. We have off-the-shelf application, which is you install from a well-known provider. It's work for everyone. And you have the customized application in-house and off-shelf application. And all of these applications are running. Okay, what the attacker found out, okay, what if I wanted to attack so many people at the same time, okay, without compromising their operating system? Because you know the operating system, the one stand behind the operating system is a big company like Microsoft, or maybe you know, big company like Apple. So really, these guys are taking security very serious, and they work day and night to patch their system and update their system. But what is much easier to impact a lot of users, because you know how many of us have Adobe Acrobat Reader, okay? Whether you are using Windows, or whether you are using Linux, or whether you are using Mac OS, okay, you still have Adobe Acrobat Reader. So now, if I find one vulnerability in Mac in Adobe Acrobat Reader, I can compromise more and more, um, basically more and more users. So for example, let's tell you about why there is so many attacks against WhatsApp. Why WhatsApp specifically has become a main target for attacks. WhatsApp is an application to just send messages and receive calls if you allow it to do it, to receive calls, or maybe to make video calls. Why it's become a center of attackers who work in mobile? Because you have Android, okay, operating system. You have Apple operating system, which is Mac, which is iOS, okay. You have Android, you have even Windows operating system, you have Nokia operating system, you have so many, you have Huawei right now are building their own operating systems. But the common thing about all these systems, all of them are gonna use WhatsApp, okay? And for me to compromise Apple you know, operating system, or to compromise Android operating system, it will take me maybe a few months to really find a vulnerability which is no one knows about it. Okay, but WhatsApp is just one application, and it is installed in millions of these devices. Not, I'm not saying million, billion of these devices. Okay, so finding one attack against WhatsApp, it would allow me to compromise all these machines, or all these phone users. And that's why you find a lot of the attacks right now are really targeting the application, okay? And this is also open the topic of, you know, if you decided here, guys, to build your own application, are you following something called SDLC, which is Secure Development Life Cycle? Okay, how to implement SDLC? And that's why one of the topics that's it's already there in the website is talking about development life cycle. What he's talking about when he talks about development life cycle? Why it's important? Yes, because it's important because one day you will end up install this application that you develop within your company into your computer. And if these applications are not developed and in a security in mind, this specifically application will be the point for the attacker to compromise your system. So that's why a lot of emphasis right now is saying SDLC. So this is one important topic about SDLC. Another thing that you need to really know about, I'm gonna go now off the shelf, get Adobe Acrobat Reader, okay? Adobe Acrobat Reader is from a big company. They are following SDLC? Are they taking security when they develop the software seriously? So I need to really understand, even if I'm getting off-shelf application, they are really taking care of security. So secure DLC and all the stuff, it is becoming a hype right now, and it's becoming something really people are really interested in, because they found out that the application eventually will be in our computers, and if these applications are not secure, it will open the door for the attackers. And the attackers, it's not easy for them to compromise hardware. It's not easy for them to compromise operating system. This is really needs a lot of effort, but it's easy for them to compromise only one application, which is not developed with security in mind. Okay, guys, so far so good.
Yes, so
Okay.
far so good.
Okay, I think this is a good time right now to break for a nice, quick, I would say, inshallah, break. We'll go for a break for 15 minutes, and we'll come back at 10:45, inshallah. Okay, in this 10:45, guys, we will look at defense in depth. How can we do defense in depth in environments? So I will see you guys in 15 minutes. Have a great day.
Thank you, Mr. Shadi.
Okay, guys, welcome back. Everyone is here. Enjoy his lunch break. Sorry, the tea break. Some of you have enjoyed already. Asail, mashallah, she's always enjoying her karak break. Anawar, and Asail saying it was good. Okay, Ibtisam, mashallah. I can see a lot of you guys already, mashallah, having a good time with tea and coffee. So inshallah, I'll try to give you more in the next course. Next month, inshallah, when we start the other course, it requires a lot of thinking and, you know,
A lot of tea.
critical thinking, I would say. So I will give you more tea breaks, inshallah. Okay, guys. So I
Mr.
was
Shadi,
looking. Yes.
at the morning you started saying something about the exam for tomorrow, exam update, and then we
Yes.
moved to
Okay.
something else.
So the exam updates is very good. Thank you for reminding me. So the exam update, guys, that I have for you is the exam is tomorrow is starting 1 o'clock or 1:15 to be more precise. Okay, 1:15 and the exam is 3 hours only. Okay, so 3 hours. So that's mean you will finish and submit. That's if you really require all the time. So I really doubt that you need all the time to solve the exam. We solve it 4:15. That's mean in the morning, if you guys having questions, or maybe you already did a review and something is not clear, we can come back again here in the morning tomorrow. And I usually don't want to be here in the morning, especially on the exam day. But if you have questions, just post it in Discord. So I will look for these questions, and then we will meet up for maybe 1 hour tomorrow, so I can give you like enough time to enough time to review as well before the exam, and we can just talk about these questions in the session early in the morning. But the session is only 1 hour tomorrow. Okay, guys. So I was looking for the NIST publication, okay, which is the 853 revision 5. So you can see this is the revision 5. I found the PDF. I was really find it's weird that it was no mentioning for firewall, but here under this section in the NIST publication 853 revision 5, there's something called boundary protection. Boundary means the boundaries between you and the external world. Okay, so it's saying here, monitor and control communication at the external manage interfaces, okay, to the system, and at key internal managed interfaces within the system. Okay, so you need to manage and control the traffic coming from outside and inside. Okay, implement subnetworks. Okay, this is subnetworks that we will look at as logically or physically. This is the VLANs. Okay, and also connect to external networks on a system only through managed interfaces, which is basically, he's gonna tell you again here, the description. Managed interfaces that I'm telling you about could be a router or a gateway that can be used as a managed interfaces, or a firewall, or maybe a network-based intrusion detection and prevention. So this is, you will find like a lot of here, and basically it's saying how you control the traffic between you and external, and then it's giving you one of the solution here is firewall, or guards, or maybe intrusion detection, prevention, and so on and so forth. So for example, if you wanted to say IBS, IBS is another terminology for basically, this is IBSec. This is IBS, or we can say it's an intrusion detection system. You will find intrusion and intrusion detection system. It's there. I see it. IDS. Okay. Yes, over here, this IDS systems. Okay, so you find anything that we already mentioned, even the incident response procedures, you'll find it here in this document. So it's a very interesting document I have shared with you guys, so you can really look into it when you have time. Okay, so let's go back to the lectures, the defense in depth that we were talking about here. And the defense in depth, as I mentioned to you, it means that you implement a layered protection, okay? And this layered protection is gonna be defending your system. And this is an example that I give you guys before, long time back, which is basically consider yourself as you have a castle, and in the middle of maybe the mid ages, when they used to have a lot of fights between different kings and all this, you know, stories from the Mother of Dragon and Winter and Coming and all this crazy stuff they are just putting there now. So the defense in depth is saying, okay, let's say that you have these castles and you wanted really to defend your castle. What you will have, he mentioned here clearly that you need to really create a layer of layer. So don't rely on one solution and say, you know, a firewall is enough to protect my systems, or antivirus is enough to protect my systems from attackers. No, start with multiple layers and let each layer to really to be there. And if even the attacker managed to bypass one layer, the other layers will be able to defend against your important asset. So it's giving you an example, say that you have a very expensive maybe gold over here, or you know, an assets. And the first thing is you look at is that you try to clear out the area around your castle. Because if you have a lot of trees around your castles like this, someone can really, even if you have a guard over here who's watching everything, but even these kind of trees, it will be barrier to notice if there is an army marching against your castle. So the first early beginning saying, okay, you know what, clear all this area around the castles so you'll be able to see if there are attackers. And that is exactly what detection is all about. Detection our networks mean that you really need to understand what traffic is coming in, what traffic is coming out, going out from your network. And if you find anything anomaly, okay, or something is abnormal, you can say, you know, this is abnormal. We really need to do something about it. For example, let's say that you have here, okay, a DMZ area. Okay, DMZ's area, I said it's area where we usually leave our, you know, public service. The public service you have here DNS and HTTP website, okay? And all of a sudden, was an HTTPS, okay, website, which is with S, yeah, it means you are using SSL. And all of a sudden, you find from one of these servers, okay, a communication over Telnet, okay, which is unsecure protocol. Why one of these servers are using Telnet communications? Okay, so how we will be able to really to see this traffic clearly, or maybe you find ISMB's messages, which is big in size, coming out of one of your servers, and this is a way to exfiltrate data. Or maybe you find some data that comes in a regular times and talking to a specific servers in the internet. So the specific server in the internet, they call it sometimes command and control servers. So how the first thing is you need a detection technique. Detection techniques you need, like for example, IDS, intrusion detection systems, that is can really monitor the traffic and say, you know what, in this area we notice there is a DNS traffic, HTTPS traffic, and sometimes SMTP traffic. But recently we find a traffic which is not normal, which is basically ISMB, which is ping traffic. Why is this ping traffic coming from out that area? This will allow you to investigate. So the clarifying the area and will make you able to determine or really to spot if someone is trying to come near your castle. So this is one thing. Other thing is basically this lake over here. Okay, this lake, even if someone or a thief came around your castle, and because this thing is closed all the time, or maybe it opens, so no